Alright, so now we're going to get into some data collection. We'll start off with Google Blog Search. Has anybody been out to Google Blog Search? Okay, what have you used it for?
I've just done it once. I had a social media class over the summer, so we just kind of looked at it during class.
Okay.
It was really interesting.
Alright. So, cool thing about Google Blog Search, in my opinion, like the best thing, is that you can set up the date range that you want to look at the data. So it kind of gives you some control, even though it's not the end-all be-all best site. But typically, you just go out to Google. Actually, copy it up. So typically the first page doesn't have a lot of anything. Usually I just tend to type something in there. I'll hit Google search. Once you get into the second page, and honestly I don't know why they don't have this on the first page, you can go down to this little part called custom range. Kind of like Topsy, except they give you a little bit of control here. Well, if I want to look at data for the past year, I can set that up. So I think today's, September 6th. Go down here, set it up for today. Now I've got my nice little custom range, and then when I'm writing out my report, because Dr. Levin's going to want to know what date you got this data from in case he wants to double check it. You've got those dates right there. Typically, I would just get a screenshot of this and put it in your report. That way, Dr. L doesn't have to go back and double check that. You can just look at your report, and there's a nice screenshot in there. Then once I get that, I typically just rerun the search. The cool thing is it usually gives you what your total population is right there. So now you know what your total population is. Typically what I do is I run through again. I can't go through 11,000 messages. What I can do is go through, say, the first 5 or 6 pages and copy all of these links into a spreadsheet. And what I mean by copying the links, usually I go out to this, I'll copy the title, and then I'll copy the URL, and then I'll copy some of the text into a spreadsheet. It's a little time consuming, like I mentioned, but once you get all that copied into a spreadsheet, then you have yourself a nice little data collection set. So again, this is a real good site. Again, the one thing you want to do is just make sure you're taking really good notes when you look up the content. So again, you have a population of 11,000. You're going to gather about 50 messages of it, but you just want to just make sure you're keeping track of everything, just so you know. So if anyone else does a similar search, that they can kind of mirror this study as good as possible.
Ron,
yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Isn't the purpose of what you're doing generally to get unbiased consumer sentiment about something? And the page that you just came up with was something that was driven by WNKU. Would that be something you would exclude, the one that you just landed on?
Yeah.
The first one you landed on?
Yeah, you don't want to get this side in. You are going to have to do some Q&A. So you want to check these and make sure these are actually legitimate blogs. You can use some media sources. I wouldn't use anything put out by WNKU.
Right.
But media is a big part of social media. So I would include maybe some media sources, Cincinnati.com, blogs.
Okay.
The one thing you want to do, and I'll get into it here in a little bit, is not necessarily, you want to copy these and count them, but look at, see if there's a comment section right here. This is a good one. Not only do I want to copy this, because this is a good article, because it talks about kind of an image thing, or budget cuts affecting NKU, and I'll get into that one. But look at the people, 6 comments. I want all 6 of these comments in here. So actually, when I did this study, I got that, and then I copied all 6 of these. And the reason you really want to get this one in here, I mean, you got a guy like Paul Doherty commenting on this. He's what I would call an influencer. I want to know what people are saying. So, so this is kind of one issue. Now, I'll get into this a little bit, but this is probably the one thing I found that was probably affecting NKU or WNKU as of late. It's pretty recent, kind of deals with the economy, things like that. So again, this isn't anything that should be looked at as statistically significant, but the findings that I had, the budget cuts, affecting the quality of food here, that was kind of the one thing I noticed. So, but we'll get into that here. All right, so we got about 20 minutes. We're going to try to speed this up a little bit. So again, when you go through the data, just try to look at it, make sure it looks like it's a relevant site, and then also check for comments. Again, one of the things you want to do is you want to, I typically track the date found. So I did all this on 8/26. I look at the date post. So the one I just showed you, 8/17, I want to know what date that article posted. Not that I'll use it for anything, but it's just good. You want to be as detailed as you can when you're doing a study. I typically copy the title and then the whole post. So this was the entire post. And then I have the URL. And then I typically break them out. Is it a new site? You can report it if you want to. In some cases, I might see multiple authors popping up. So not really for this site, but what if I saw the same author on Twitter? Then I can say, okay, he's posting a lot about you guys on multiple sites. Someone you might want to track. So, and then typically once I get all that done, and again, I copy the comments too for that particular one. So that's Paul Doherty's comment right there. So I get all those in there. And then what I do is I run through the messages and score them. So, so Paul Doherty, he's obviously he's an influential person. I already know that. He's got a photo there, and I know who he is. So I was able to get his gender for demographic purposes, know his location. He's a journalist, so you can track some people's profession. You can't get it in every instance. And then you're able to run through the messages. He's not really bashing WNKU, so I label this as a neutral message. Typically, you want to break these out into positive, negative, mixed, and neutral. So if someone says, I love NKU, that's positive. I hate NKU, negative. I like NKU, but I'm wondering if the budget cuts will affect the quality of programming. That's a mix. Paul Doherty was actually pretty positive about Michael Bird, but he wasn't really speaking positively about the situation. So I just scored that as a neutral message. So that's kind of how you want to look at it. And again, you can have topics. So once I get past a lot of these main areas, the next thing I do is do sort of a topic analysis. And Michael Bird, is the one thing he was talking about. And then one of the things I found interesting was a couple of WNKU shows in particular that were popping up. And the best thing I would do actually is expand that list before you even start. I'd go out to the website, WNKU's website, and get a list of all the shows, and then just mark them anytime you hear one of them. But I know Studio 89 and Front Porch came up, and I think they're pretty positive too for both of them. So yeah, for instance, one person here on Twitter said, WNKU really good picks this morning on the Front Porch. So from a Twitter user, so able to get a lot of pretty good information about which shows people are really liking, which ones they're talking about. So.
And Ron, that's based on about 30 different places that you found stuff in your search?
This is about 30 different messages. Yeah,
30 different messages.
Google blog search and Twitter. You can probably expand it, and I would recommend using Topsy if you're doing it yourself too. So
okay,
that would be a good site to go.
I know you're obviously an expert. You've been doing this your whole life.
You want to get at least 100 of them that you can score, which means you probably want to collect about 200. And then does anybody know how to use a randomize function in Excel? It's really cool. Basically, you just go equal RAND and then put the parentheses, and then just like this. This is the best function ever. Just like that, and then it gives you back a random number. And then what you can do is you can just drag that number down to the end of your sample, or in most cases, people just double click that. I guess I already have that there. But anyways, once you randomize this data, say I have 200 messages. At that point, I can just highlight all my data, and then I can just go up to data sort, and then sort it by column A, and then that'll just randomize all the messages in. So now I have a pretty good random set of data that I can go from when I'm scoring my messages, and that's typically how I get to somewhat of a random set.
Does that mean you're not going to use the full 200? You're just going to cut it at whatever?
Honestly, with Nielsen, we only use sample sizes of about 150 to 200 when we did a lot of the manual scoring. So I would say if you guys are able to get 100 to 150 messages, that's about what we would do with Nielsen too. It's because once you read into this, you're a lot of it's time consuming, especially with what you guys have. Now, you guys already have a spreadsheet like this. I was able to send Dr. Levin a spreadsheet, so I think your guys' spreadsheet. I was able to get you guys data from August 30th, 2011 through August 29th. So all you have to do Let's just go in here. I'd remember this one. This is just a great feature. Yeah, and then just double click that, and then I would just go here, sort, column A. You can. It doesn't matter which one you go with. I just go small, largest. It'll just sort all the data for you. So, now you got a nice little random set of data. I think there's about 500 and something messages here. I'd get maybe the first 150, 200. Just the point is, regardless of the sample size, once you determine what amount you want to score, so out of these 500, you're not going to want to score all 500, unless you want to break the project up and give one group, the first 250. But I'd still randomize it. Just it's a good function to learn.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, and then B that's the comments. That's the actual data.
Yep. This here's the title. That there is the actual post. That's the source. That's the date it was posted. That's who posted it, and that's the actual URL where that post can be found. So if I went out, then it would have that post. Yep. That's basically what we would get back from Nielsen if I exported that data, came right from their content system. So, and again, I usually just put the headers. You can put them in any order that you want in a spreadsheet, and then I just start going through the messages. So it's basically in a nutshell how we get that done. So. All right, so we got about 2 minutes here. We're trying to zip these.
I want to take a pause for 1 second.
All right.